Well, good afternoon, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Jeff Eastman. I'm the university planner here, and I'm helping to shepherd the master plan process. And I wanted to welcome you all today. Thank you for coming out. We're also streaming live on Facebook, which we tried yesterday but ran into difficulty, so hopefully today will be the day that we get it working. We started this process back in October, and hopefully a lot of you were involved back then. We have held a number of meetings. We've been listening to folks ever since we started, and that will continue through the process. But what we're here to do today is to report back to you and to get your feedback and make sure that how the plan is progressing is how you wanted to see it progress. And so I'll introduce our planning team: Jess Leonard with Air St. Rose, Kevin Peterson, and what we're going to do today is we've got an hour presentation. We've got a hard stop at 1. So, I'm sorry, the presentation is not an hour. The presentation is a half an hour, and we want to leave the equal amount of time for question and answer afterwards. So, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Jess, and we're all here to answer questions afterwards. We've got a host of folks, and we'll probably be able to stick around a little bit afterwards. If you're not comfortable answering or asking the question in person, you can pull one of us to the side afterwards. We also have opportunity through the website where you can submit questions, and that's masterplan.vcu.edu. Right. Thanks, Jeff.
If you don't remember that, it's at the slide at the end. Thanks, Jeff. So I just want to welcome you all again and thank you so much for taking your valuable time to be with us. And today what we really want to do, as Jeff said, give you an update on our process. Some of you might have been at the input session or engagement sessions to date. Some of you, this might be your very first time learning about the master plan. So we want to make sure everyone understands what a master plan is. We're going to update you on the engagement we've had to date, the themes that have come out, some of the analysis we've done and conducted. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Kevin, who's going to walk through the emerging themes and the concept plan that will guide the next phase of our process. The most important thing is to understand what a master plan is, and equally important what it is not. The goal of a master plan is to align the physical campus with the mission and vision of the university. So it's looking a long-term vision, a framework, with near-term opportunities and decision-making for the university. It is not a strategic plan, it is not setting a strategic direction, and it is not a capital plan. So it is not providing the budget or the financing that is going to make some of these projects come to fruition. As Jeff mentioned, we started our process back in the fall. And over the fall and winter, we spent a lot of time meeting with as many stakeholders as possible. That is continually happening. Every time we're on campus, we're engaging new groups, re-meeting with groups that we've already met with. And then we've been spending this first part of this year coming up with these emerging themes, and that's what we're going to share with you today. That will inform and serve as the foundation for our design phase that will start this spring and go into the early summer. And that's where we're going to test scenarios on each campus, think about highest and best use of site, meeting needs that are apparent from the different units on campus. And then over the summer and early fall, we'll pull all of those scenarios together into a draft plan, think about implementation, priorities, phasing, maybe some enabling projects that have to happen, and wrap that up in the fall with a final presentation to the Board of Visitors in December of this year. There'll be opportunities along the way for more presentations like this, maybe some poster sessions where we'll show our themes and different scenarios to get input. But the website, as Jeff said, is a great way to continually see our presentations. We'll be uploading them after every workshop with an update and a blog that'll give you additional information about the plan. A little bit more about who we are and the team that is doing the master plan. I'm Jessica Leonard with Air St. Rose. Our firm almost works exclusively for mission-driven institutions and higher education. So we work across the country at colleges and universities like VCU. And so we're bringing that expertise, and we're going to really be focusing on everything from student housing and the student experience, space needs, wayfinding, placemaking, signage, thinking about the innovation districts, how partnerships can help. It's a huge theme in higher education right now. Sustainability, and then working with the health sciences and med center for their planning. We have a strong team of consultants, many of which are local to Richmond, that are also going to be working with us on this plan, thinking about history, campus heritage, landscape, civil engineering, cost estimating, and financial feasibility. So throughout this process, you will see an array of us working together to help bring this plan to fruition. A key foundation of this plan is engagement. We're trying to meet with as many stakeholders in a lot of different forums as possible to make sure we're getting the input and also updating people of the process. We know you want information and we're hoping to provide that in a lot of different ways. To date, we've had over 75 meetings and met with over 700 individual people on a one-on-one basis. And then we've had over 5,000 visits to the website where people have come to get information. So we're excited, but we're not stopping there. We're going to continue to engage with the community, both inside VCU and the local community of Richmond. Just some feedback about what we've been hearing. So some of you might have participated in the fall in input sessions. This was open to the VCU and Richmond community, and we had over 3 days, 5 locations where people could come and give information, do a dot exercise that really helps us understand the DNA of the campus, understand how people are using the campus on a daily basis. So one of the questions we asked is, what is your favorite and least favorite place on campus? And what we asked is the yellow dots represent your favorite places, and the black dots represent your least favorite places. And these diagrams summarize the larger the dot, the more stickers people had put on there. So on the Monroe Park campus, the favorite place, was not surprising, was Cabell Library. Also the Commons and the gym. So if you think about that, that's where people are coming together. It's congregation areas, it's places people can congregate. There's usually food involved. The park was a favorite and a least favorite, and I think the supplemental information we got was because it's closed right now and it can't be used, and we know that it's a vital resource to both the city and the community. On the MCD campus, more of the places that were least favorite were outside of the building. It was focused on intersections and places where crossing the street may not be as convenient or people didn't feel as safe walking around. And so that helps us understand that there's opportunity to improve both the outside environment, the streetscape, as well as the interior of buildings. This building on this campus was one of the least favorite, and so it's an opportunity to think about the condition of our facilities and what might be able to be improved as part of this plan. The other question we asked is, where do you study and collaborate? And this really does help understand how people are using the campus. And the colors here, students were orange, staff were yellow, faculty were red, and the community were blue. And again, by and large for the students, they're going to the library. They're going to the places that are the large social areas. We found a lot of students from the MCD campus were coming over to the Monroe Park campus to study because there's a strong graduate area in that library, but also that some of those spaces are lacking on the MCD campus, and that's an opportunity as well. For faculty and staff, a lot of people were meeting more inside their unit, so in their home department, and potentially where there's food. And so we were thinking maybe there's opportunities to bring the disciplines outside of their buildings, and are there better spaces that can help people collaborate and work together. For the community, it was more destination locations, so it was the park, it was the Siegel Center, it was the performing arts. It's places that people want to come to on campus, and that's really important to understand as we think about welcoming campus, how people are getting to campus, is the places they're using. Obviously on the MCD campus, the hospital is huge, and there's a ton of patients and visitors that come every day, and that experience needs to be clear and understandable for them as well. During our individual stakeholder meetings, we asked a similar set of questions so that we could continue to see if there were trends and themes in the responses. The first two we asked were, what were the major strengths of the university and what were the major weaknesses? By and large, there was a lot of agreement that the strengths are around your programs and your place. So the comprehensive nature of VCU, with everything from the health sciences to engineering to art to liberal arts, are really strong and need to be celebrated, and really people need to understand that and figure out better ways to work together across those disciplines. Also the place in Richmond. The fact that you're an urban institution in this amazing city is a huge asset. And so how can the city and the university work together and build a strong dynamic place is something that this plan really wants to think about. Weaknesses were about space, both quantity and quality. So is there enough space to do what you need to do? But more importantly, is the space of the right quality? So is this classroom providing the right type of condition of the way teaching happens today? Is it more collaborative than a lecture format of what we're doing right now? And then parking comes up on every campus across the country. Is there enough? Is it in the right location? And there's a parking and transportation study that's happening parallel to this effort that is going to inform this master plan so we can ask some of those questions, answer some of those questions. We then asked two more specific questions. One theme and one initiative of the president is to really make it feel one VCU. So how do the two campuses, while they're distinctly different, feel like one VCU between the health system and the university? And then front doors, thinking about when you know you've arrived at campus, should you know when you're on or off campus? We wanted to get a little bit of feedback from people about that. For one VCU, the thoughts were around increasing programmatic opportunities, around research, around teaching, where different groups can come together, and that's where you really feel the strength of the VCU, is that you're collaborating across clinical, across research, across academics. Students are getting experiences across disciplines. That transportation would be a critical component to allow that to happen better, to be able to get between the campuses, to get around each campus, would facilitate the ability to be able to have greater consistency around one VCU. For the front doors, people gravitated towards the idea of national prominence. That when you come here, that we should be celebrating what's great about VCU. The ICA came up a lot about as a new showcase building about the arts and what that means for VCU. So what are the other opportunities might be, and where would those locations be that you would celebrate and recognize that you're part of the VCU campus? Simultaneously to listening and meeting to people, we were touring campus, we were analyzing it, we were doing a lot of diagrams, the fun stuff that architects and planners do. And so these are some of the diagrams and the analysis that we did that rose to the top that really informed our themes and parallel to what we were hearing a lot from our stakeholders. The first one is how great the location in Richmond is. I already said this, that we heard a lot about that. But when you see the diversity of the neighborhoods, the historic nature of Richmond, that's a huge asset to the university, and I think the university is a huge asset to the city. And so how can we improve that and think about that as part of this planning effort? Open space is something we always want to understand on campuses. So mapping where it is today, you can see around the library there's a lot of space that has been better defined. You can argue, and we'll look at it, can it be improved? But that's the part of campus where you feel more traditionally that you're part of a campus, where the pedestrian environment is increased. The MCV campus doesn't really have that feel, that there's not a sense of place or a heart of that campus. We also recognize that, like most urban institutions, that state amenities, public parks such as Monroe Park and the state capitol, supplement the ability to have a large open space as part of campus. And so we see around the country that that's really a huge asset, and something that we see at VCU is how can you better connect and both have the community and the university sharing that resource as a big amenity on the edge of each campus. We look at where there aren't currently open space connections. We really look about the north-south connections, and while the core has started to be defined as a strong open space in streetscape, we think about as you move from Franklin up to Grace and up to Broad, could there be better connections? Could the streetscape be improved? Could there be increased open space to allow feel more like a campus? And then on MCV, we've got even more work to do to improve the streetscape and create that sense of place. We also think about opportunities working with the city to improve the streetscape in between the campus. We actually had a meeting with the city this morning and we talked about Broad Street, and they already have plans in place to be able to improve the streetscape there, and I think that that'll help both the city and the university and the stakeholders using it. Next, we thought a lot about how people come to campus. What is the arrival experience? There's a lot of different ways you can come to VCU depending on which highway, which direction you're coming from. And right now, a lot of those entry routes are not very clearly defined. And I think the city would say you don't even know when you're necessarily coming to Richmond. So how can you better define, better help people find their way to campus and understand where they're coming to? So is it they're coming to a parking destination? Are they coming to a basketball game or performance? Are they going to watch, to visit their son or daughter and come for the weekend? I bet you if I asked who knew where the Welcome Center is, you might not know that it's in the Broad Street deck. So as a first-time visitor or a prospective student, what is your first impression of campus? And so something we're taking a hard look at early in the process is helping to define that arrival experience, when you should or shouldn't know you're on campus, and how that can strengthen. And then you think about the MCV campus and the amount of patients that come every day. making sure it's clear to them where they're supposed to park, where they can valet, how they're coming. It's very important and complicated, and we're working closely with the health system to make sure that is done well. Programmatically, understanding where people are located, where different uses, how people are using the campus. So this diagram is abstract, pulling together the different aspects of campus. So where is their student housing? Where are the classrooms? Where are the teaching labs? Where is research? And then just seeing that the campus is pretty zoned, that you have an academic kind of core or hub. But we've also learned that a lot of the academic units are very dispersed and fragmented. The art is in a lot of different buildings, that there's a lot of faculty that can't work together. So how can this project improve adjacency and allow people to work together, as well as thinking about the quality and condition of facilities? When you get to the MCD campus, the density is just the compactness of that campus, that all of the aspects are right on top of each other. And then you've got the hospital on top of that. And so that's an opportunity and a challenge, because a lot of campuses, we want more density and proximity, but then there's also the ability to meet the needs of the different stakeholders is something that we'll definitely focus on. And finally, thinking about how we do get between campuses and thinking about the greater network and the relationship with the city, and knowing that the BRT is coming and where those pulse stops are something we're really excited about, and how that might improve transportation between the city, between the campuses, but also knowing where there are vibrant nodes for the city and how that will impact both Richmond and the university is something we're working closely with the city with, and thinking about how that can enhance the circulation network across the campuses. So what we've done is taken that engagement and these analysis, and it's really led us to themes that Kevin's going to walk us through right now.
Great, thank you, Jess. So one of the key pieces of developing themes is to look at the strategic plan, and that's something that the university is currently in the process of developing. And it's really establishing a very bold vision of making VCU a premier urban public research university. And it's really a bold vision about how to get there. It's being branded as Quest 2025, and the physical campus needs to support this vision. So while the strategic plan is in process, there are themes that are emerging. We're having close coordination with the strategic planning committees to understand those themes around student success, around national prominence, urban transformation, and diversity and a culture of appreciation. And the physical campus can really support these themes and support where the university wants to go in the future. And so together with the strategic plan, this master plan becomes a collaborative roadmap for the university and the health system to think about transforming the physical campus to make it more welcoming, accessible, and unique to VCU's character and quality, to improve the for innovation, to showcase national prominence of the university, and really engage with the community, which is key to the strategic plan. So what we have done is, working with the analysis and the listening that Jess just overviewed with the strategic framework, is developed 5 guiding principles. And what I would like to do is walk through these. There's a lot of overlap within them, and what we've done for each of them is develop the principle and strategies that are going to inform how we think about physical improvements on the campus. So the first principle is around student success, and this is the idea that we want to ensure student success and well-being through high quality and appropriate teaching, learning, study, and living spaces. And Jess talked a lot about changes in how students are learning and how faculty are teaching. There's amazing growth in research at VCU and funding for research. And there's a lot of focus on supporting the living and learning goals of students. And so the spaces and the campus really needs to support these and really support the overall mission of the university. We also know we have to capitalize on the urban location. I think as we looked at what everyone loved about VCU, it's its location within the city of Richmond. I think that's a huge reason people come here. They think it's really a vibrant place to be. The campus can do a better job of capitalizing on that and thinking about ways to do that. We need to add formal and informal spaces for students to come together and collaborate. That's something that's lacking in a lot of buildings. You saw the places people love the best on campuses are the places they can do that. And a lot of times the places they didn't love are the places they don't have the opportunity to do that. A big focus of this plan is going to be modernizing student support spaces and thinking about the student commons. So how can that enhance the student experience? And then renovating and repurposing buildings for their highest and best use, and recognizing that not all spaces can serve all uses. So buildings do serve a purpose, and we have to think about, are they serving the right purpose and really supporting that academic unit or that student function that's in there. And then we need to think about where we strategically need to build new space to meet the needs of the university. Second to student experience is program synergies. And I think one of the things that's a big push in the strategic plan is more interdisciplinary collaboration. So we want to advance that culture, develop shared spaces that inspire community, partnerships, creativity, and innovation here at VCU. And I think one of the things that's amazing in the programs is there's a lot of interprofessional programs where there's collaboration on learning environments, and there's a lot of interdisciplinary research happening. And in a lot of ways, the facilities are not supporting that. So we need to think about facilities that support innovation, collaboration, and really breaking down some of the boundaries between the colleges and the departments. And then we also need to think about balancing some of the relationships between research and clinical, especially on the NCV campus. And those connections are really critical in thinking about the program growth and the needs of those programs. We need to create spaces that are flexible to meet the needs of functions that can accommodate a range of users. And so how can we really make interdisciplinary space? It's having spaces that can work for a variety of groups and provide that flexibility. And then we have to think about adjacency. So one of the things when we look at the program, you just mentioned this, is there are academic units that are fragmented across campus. And that really inhibits collaboration or synergies within those departments. So we are thinking about those critical adjacencies, how they can be enhanced, and how they can be better supported. Research is really a big opportunity to enhance, and there's a goal to grow research at the university, and we need to provide the space to support that. And that means more core facilities that support shared research initiatives, more building systems and utility infrastructure to really support the right amount of research and the right types of research at the university. And then lastly, we need to think about prioritizing some of the opportunities to build proximity to fulfill multiple academic needs, and really think about how we can bring departments together while still meeting departmental needs on the campus. The third principle is about celebrating and enhancing VCU's unique urban setting and rich history. And what we want to ensure is that the physical campus results in a sense of pride from the VCU community and the Richmond community. And I think there are places that, as we talk to students, as we talk to faculty, staff, and community members, you feel that on the campus, and there are places you don't feel that. And so how can we really think about that? And I think one of the opportunities that Jess talked about is developing and clarifying the front doors to campus. A lot of times you don't know you're on campus unless you're at Cabell Library or you're at some of the more memorable places of campus. The edges of campus have surface parking lots or don't have that same sense of identity. So how can we think about those points? We also want to identify the iconic places on each campus that need to be celebrated and preserved, and a lot of times that's touchstone to the history of the campus. And then tied to all of this is the idea of a more cohesive network of landscape and open space, more optimization of campus green spaces, connecting to the city parks and the city resources, and then really think about activating campus streets and open spaces on campus. So those active spaces are really places where people come together, and we want to think about how we can do that more throughout the campus. And then I think one of the things we want to consider with all of these open space and public spaces on campus is that we're designing welcoming places that really accommodate a broad range of users. So we are thinking about students, but we are also thinking about patients, families, faculty, staff, neighbors, all people that are on campus and using these spaces. So how can we think about the experiences and accommodating that broad range of experiences on the campus? And then tied to this idea of placemaking is really mobility and safety. And we need to promote a more walkable, accessible, and safe campus, which is easy to navigate. And so part of that is clarifying the arrival experience. We need to create a healthy, active campus that is really supported by reliable transit. I think that's something we've heard a lot about how people move back and forth between the campus is really driven by transit in a lot of ways. And then we need to improve walkability and mobility between all areas, both within the campus and outside the campus. And this is a place, when we talk to the city, there's a lot of opportunities to improve bike infrastructure, the way bike routes go between the campuses, and I think a big opportunity to make it safer and enhance that. And I think that's a big theme here around mobility is we need to promote personal and pedestrian safety through clear sight lines, distinct intersections and crosswalks, and really think about where are those challenge points for the pedestrian and for bike safety and vehicular safety as well in and around the campus. And that's where we think kind of working with the city to expand the bike shares program and bike infrastructure is really critical to the success of improving safety and linking the campuses together. We want to retain vehicular access and parking on the edges of campus, and also provide accessible and inclusive facilities on the campus that accommodate all users. So as we think about renovation of buildings, new buildings, open spaces, accessibility is really a critical priority as part of this master plan. And then the last guiding principle is to unify the campus. And this is around strengthening the heart of each campus and the collective VCU identity through strategies that connect the campuses to each other and the city of Richmond. And so we think kind of transforming the indoor and outdoor environment to create distinct, recognizable hearts of each campus is critical. We know there are two campuses. They have different programs there, different types of students, different priorities. We need to respect that. But we also need to think about how each of those campuses integrates with the growing city of Richmond and all the businesses and innovation that are happening here in Richmond, and how we can capitalize on partnership opportunities to improve the character and quality of development and streetscapes between the campuses. And there's been a lot that's happened in the past 5 or 10 years between the campuses. I think we need to continue to push on that, and we need to connect VCU resources and partners to address community-identified needs and opportunities. And so how can we work together to address some of these shared needs and opportunities that have been identified? We also think there's the opportunity to strategically locate programs between the campuses that serve both campuses, and really the opportunity to bring people together, build community, and increase collaboration and connectivity. So I think the police station being in between the campuses is an example of something that serves both and makes a lot of sense to be in between campuses. There's a couple other opportunities like that that we think exist. And then lastly, really key to unifying the campuses is direct, timely, and reliable transit between the campuses. And that really is a critical component of how people move through the campuses and trying to encourage people to use transit, use bike, use other modes instead of just getting in a car to move back and forth. So those guiding principles fold into some initial ideas around a concept plan. And this is a look at the two campuses, the Monroe Park campus on the right, the MCV campus towards the east. And what we want to do is think about how we can develop this cohesive network of open spaces. So what we've been thinking about is the open spaces on the campus, which are represented in the light green, and how those open spaces and streetscapes can start to connect to some of the public open spaces, such as the State Capitol and Monroe Park. When we were engaging people on the MCV campus, we were hearing that they're actually going to the State Capitol during lunch or during off hours just to get out of that environment and be in an open space. So those connections are really critical. And then how we can think about some of these east-west connections. Jackson and Clay Street are really critical, connecting to the Coliseum and the Biopark. And then Franklin and Cary are really important to connect to downtown Richmond and how we think about those connections. And then tied to this idea of open spaces is how we can transform and clarify some of the front doors and arrival to campuses. And I think one of the things that's important, you can see where we start to indicate these moments happening, is these are the places that the campus and the neighborhoods come up against one another. So we have to think about these front doors and what is that experience. We don't want this to be a wall or a gate. We want this to be the feeling of you're on VCU, but you're still part of the city and that fabric and that blending. So that's something that as we get into design and think about what those options are, we're going to be proposing different options for how to improve these areas of campus. So the larger circles are the major vehicular arrival points. The smaller circles are places where you have secondary, more pedestrian arrival points in the campus that we also have to consider how you experience. And then you can see these kind of dashed orange lines are where people are generally coming from to get to these points. And then lastly, we want to think about how we can integrate VCU setting with the growing city of Richmond. And so the Pulse BRT route, I think, is an amazing opportunity to think about how transit and how that corridor is transforming and what it does on the VCU campus, both campuses, and what it does between the campuses and how it can help unify. And then also thinking about streets like Grace and Marshall, and where the city is investing in streetscape improvements, and there's mix of uses on those streets and opportunities, and how the campus can connect to the city along those streets as well. So really kind of thinking about all of these components and how that can better connect the two campuses and better integrate the campus with the city of Richmond. So our next steps from a planning standpoint are we are collecting feedback on these guiding principles and the concept plan. So these are draft, and we're listening, and we look forward to hearing any feedback that you have. And then we are going to begin the design phase where we start to test specific projects that reinforce these strategies and principles for places to enhance the building. So how do we renovate buildings? Where might new buildings go? How do we improve streetscape and landscape on the campus and open spaces, signage and wayfinding, all the issues that we've identified. So we really look forward to the design phase. And then as Jess and Jeff mentioned, this is the website address. We're going to be posting this presentation on the website. We're getting a lot of feedback on the website, so feel free to also leave a comment on the website that goes directly to us. So with that, I'd love to open it up and see if anybody has any questions or feedback.